Hello, and welcome to day 2 of May You Be Inspired By, which is a collaboration put together by Mandy and Justine at Junk Journal Ideas. And thank you. I have to say a huge thank you because this is quite an honour, being asked to share your story and share tips and tricks with people who are new to this community. It's quite a big responsibility, and I have filmed this, I don't know how many times, because you want to make sure that you're giving good advice. I think that's really important. So thank you again for asking me to be part of this collaboration. I'm really honoured to be here. All of the information, all of the people that are involved in the collaboration will be linked down below. I know Mandy and Justine will have a playlist of the day-by-day videos. I will absolutely try to maintain a playlist, but I do have a memory like a chocolate teapot. How I got started is probably a very similar story to most of us in this community. It was completely by accident. I was a teacher at the time, and I was also making leather-bound notebooks at the time, and I was doing that for gifts and as a hobby, really. I wanted to expand on that, and I also wanted to get my learners involved with making books. So I went onto YouTube to plan a lesson and thought I'd have a little look and see what simple bookbinding techniques were out there, things that my students could maybe get on board with. And what a slippery slope that was. Yes, I went down the rabbit hole, lost a whole weekend on YouTube looking at these videos, and was just blown away, really, at how wonderful they were. The different styles, the different techniques, the different papers, the different inks, the different looks you could get by making these journals. And, you know, we had an absolute blast in class making these journals. And then I just went with it. And that's literally how I started. Completely by accident, and YouTube was certainly involved. So that's my story. Now, I think, again, a similar theme you're going to find through this collaboration with the tips and the kind of information we're going to give is probably going to be very similar. It's going to be along the lines of, what do we know now we wish we had known when we first started? As a crafter or as an artist, we always want the things. We want all of the things. And with this particular community, you don't need it. I just want to make that really clear. We all have different budgets. We all have different spaces. When I first started, I had a bureau, and not even the bureau, I just had the desk part of the bureau, my dining table, and I didn't really have a lot of materials and a lot of things. I had to be creative. I had to think, how can I make that? I just didn't have the funds to buy everything. And I did waste money. When I did have a budget, I would go out and buy something, and quite often what I bought was not something I didn't need. It wasn't something that was essential. It wasn't something that I could utilise a lot to make journals. So I'm going to give you some tips on my recommendations. It doesn't mean it's going to suit everybody, because everybody is going to have a different journey, a different learning process, and you're all going to come up with your own kind of styles and processes. The first thing I'm going to talk about is cutting tools. What do you need? Now, when you first start off, you don't actually know if this is going to be for you and you're going to be doing this long term. So I certainly wouldn't invest a lot of money on an expensive trimmer. I would get yourself a good pair of scissors, because you're always going to find a use for scissors, even if you don't continue to make journals. And if I was going to recommend a cheap, good pair of scissors, I would recommend these ones from IKEA. The lovely Anne picked these up for me when she went. They're IKEA scissors. They're large. They are accurate. They are pretty good scissors. And if you don't know if you're going to stay in this community, these would be perfect. £5, pair of scissors. You know, you don't need to be spending a lot of money to cut paper. Scissors do the job perfectly. So once you've got a decent pair of scissors, once you're cutting pages, you might want to invest in some of these things. So I've got a self-healing cutting mat. They come in various sizes. An A4 one would be fine. You don't need a huge one. What I would recommend is I would get one that has centimetres and inches. Mine has 2 different sizes, and you never know when you're going to want both, especially if you're trying to follow a tutorial. Some will be in centimetres, some in inches, and this is kind of a staple, I would say. It's a great working surface as well as a tool. So I would recommend a self-healing cutting mat. So let's talk about craft knives. There are a million different brands of craft knives out there, and I have probably over the years owned most of them. However, I always come back to this. These are cheap. The blades are replaceable. When they're blunt, you can break the bits off. They are much more cost effective than a craft knife. Although this is a craft knife, it's a tool. But I find these absolutely perfect for what we do. And I do not think a craft knife in particular is something that we should be spending too much money on. You know, you might get 2 or 3 spare blades. If your blade goes, your knife is useless. Where with these, you can break them off. You can get huge packs of replacement blades. I love this. This is one of my favourite craft tools, this particular knife. If you're buying a rotary cutter, if you're cutting things like fabric or anything a little bit thicker, then I would recommend you buy a sturdier rotary cutter. Whatever you can afford, but this is, again, one of my kind of favourite tools in my craft room. I use it an awful lot. Perfect for your cutting board. Now, metal rulers. If you're going to be cutting against a ruler, you need a metal one. They come in various shapes and sizes. This is a plastic ruler with a metal edge. This one has a little strip that kind of sticks out. Can't see that, but it has. This one has a complete metal edge. This is a very cheap metal ruler. It's inches one side, centimetres the other. The only thing is it is more difficult to cut against because it's a little bit thinner. Now, following the rule, buy the best you can afford. This is certainly my recommendation for cutting pages. If you're doing it by hand, this is a perfect tool. It's got a handle, it's thick, it's got a lot of weight to it. You have to hold it down, but it's easier to cut against it. Now, I've owned this for a very long time, obviously cutting things before I started journal making, but this would be the kind of ruler I would recommend. These are my recommendations if you're going to use a cutting mat and a cutting knife. So let's talk paper trimmers. I can't tell you how much money I wasted on paper trimmers when I first started off. I was buying them. I probably had 7, 8, maybe 9 different paper trimmers when I first started. And of course, you're going to find paper trimmers for different things. You've got this particular style of guillotine cutter, which is good for smaller pieces. You've then got something very similar that does a deckled edge. However, you can buy a deckled edge ruler and tear against that. So don't think you need to buy anything as elaborate as that. Now, these smaller trimmers, I would say, are a little bit obsolete at the beginning. If you're going to buy one, if you're going to buy a trimmer, don't start off with a small one. I certainly would invest in a decent trimmer at the beginning if you can. There is nothing worse than starting a project, using your trimmer to cut a sheet of paper and it's not quite straight. And I've been there. I've been there with lots of trimmers over the years. These are my 2 kind of top of the range rotary trimmers. This one by Tonic Studio and Tim Holtz, and this one by Fiskars. The biggest difference in these two trimmers is the weight. This one is much lighter than this one. This one, if you can only buy one trimmer, this is the one I recommend. The issue with it is the 6-inch mark. This one has this that pulls out, so it's not as easy on here. 6 inches is great on this one. 6 inches is not great on this one. However, this one is heavy duty. It's a heavyweight trimmer. There's no wiggle room in the blade, which there is on this one. I find this trimmer much more accurate. I love this Viscose trimmer, and if I started this out again, this would be the first trimmer I purchased, and you wouldn't need another one necessarily. I just love it. It's old, it's tattered. I have never had a problem with the blade, and I've had this trimmer maybe 4 years now. So this would be my recommended trimmer. The next tool I would recommend, I don't always use it. I don't use it frequently, but when I get it out, I make a lot of things with it at one time. And that's an envelope punch board. Not only can you make envelopes to go in pockets, you can make envelopes to turn into pages, but you can use this particular tool to make, I don't know how many things. So many options. I've got a video that I'll link if you want to look at the kind of things you can make with an envelope punch board other than just envelopes. Now, this comes with 2 tools because you also get a bone folder with this. Now, it's obviously great for scoring, has a score line on it, and if you only want to score certain things, this is a great tool for that. It's got 2 different punches, which is fabulous, and that's what makes this such a versatile tool. It's a great investment if you want to make ephemera. I think this is one of my favourite tools to use. So this one is not quite as essential because you can always fold, you can always measure and fold against a ruler. But if you are going to be doing a lot of journal making, a little bit down the line, I would recommend investing in a scoreboard. I use this a lot more than I thought I would. I thought I could live without one, and I did for a very long time. I like this one because although the score lines are in inches and everything is lined up, there is a little centimetre ruler, I don't know if you can see, along the bottom. So I recommend this scoreboard. It's a cheaper end. It's not an expensive product. And when it comes to scoreboards, I'm not sure you need an expensive scoreboard. I think cheap will be fine. The next tool I want to talk about is hole punch and eyelet setters. Now at the beginning, because I was making leather bound notebooks, I actually had a handheld punch where you actually had to unscrew the top, the size fitting you wanted to punch your various size holes. And then I had a little metal template and a hammer to set my eyelets. Now, once I got into the world of junk journaling, I found a whole array of other tools to do that job. They are cheaper. The handheld punches are cheaper, but they are difficult to use. They don't always cut properly. And I would 100% recommend investing in one of these. These both do exactly the same thing. They punch a hole and set an eyelet. This one you've got a much longer reach. If I just show you. So this one will go in that far. Okay. This one you can punch right into a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, for example. This one is fantastic, but it is more difficult to use. So this one I would recommend maybe as a later purchase, but this one I would certainly recommend if you are starting out. We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile. It's an investment. It's not cheap. You can pick these up secondhand. You can also buy replacement parts. But this I really do recommend if you are looking for an eyelet setter. So let's talk corner punches, corner rounders. It's something that you come across quite a lot when you watch videos, rounding the corners of journal tags, journal cards, pockets, book pages, all sorts of things. And I have had, again, several of these. This one was a little bit pricey. It is the We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile Corner Chopper. And yes, it is fantastic if you are cutting several sheets of paper at once. However, the corner is not a great corner. I do not particularly like this corner rounder. These ones, I've had them years and I love them. There's a small corner and a large corner. So that one does a small rounded corner. This one will do a large rounded corner. Out of these, if you could only buy one, I would recommend the large. It's an X tool and I love it. I sharpen it up with my tin foil and it has lasted, I don't know how long, a lifetime of crafting. So the last thing I want to talk about is not necessarily, well, it's kind of a tool, but it's not really a tool, and that's ink. When I first started, I went out and bought, I don't know, every colour ink from the cheapest range at the local craft shop I possibly could, and I didn't use any of them. If I'd have known then, I would have invested in just one of these. And I particularly think the vintage photo is an absolutely great starting place, and it's a staple for many crafters, many journal makers and many artists. So if you were going to buy one ink, I would recommend this one. You don't need your expensive tools because to apply your ink, you can use a makeup sponge, you can use a piece of sponge, you can use a makeup brush. There are so many options. You don't need to go out there and buy expensive tools to apply your ink. That's it. That's my tips and tricks. So my advice is purchase the best your budget will allow. Make sure you look at everything out there. Read reviews, that's a huge thing. Read the reviews of the products, read reviews on YouTube, look at reviews on Facebook groups. But looking at the product reviews on the selling sites is really important. This is all just my opinion. It's just my opinion. And you'll probably hear some contradictory opinions throughout this collaboration because we all have our little ways, don't we? We all have the things that we are used to. So these are just the products that I would recommend, and I wish I'd have bought at the beginning rather than waste a lot of the money that I did waste. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I really hope you enjoy the rest of the collaboration. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck on your journey. See you soon. Bye.